Today, Sunday, the 20th of January 2019.
Yes,
My
sir,
name
yes.
is Mandingo, journalist from Jamaica and also a record producer. Today I'm going to interview Reason with my good brethren from the 1970s, one of the most famous studio engineers in the reggae world and the world of music in general. A man who has excelled and still excels in music recording as a studio engineer, not only dub-wise, but otherwise. He personifies versatility, and he's also a perfectionist. He's popularly known as Scientist internationally. His surname is Brown, but Scientist, tell us your given name and where you were born in Jamaica and where you went to school.
Yes, my name is Hopton Brown. I grew up in Kingston, Jamaica. I used to go to Gainsted High School. That was the last school I attended in Jamaica.
How did you get involved in the music business and the world of electrical appliances? Because living in Harborview, I know that there was an elder friend of yours who, because of him, you got involved with fixing irons, TVs. I mean, you were the person after a while in Harborview, any domestic item that needed to be fixed, you were the go-to person. What was his name and where did he work?
Well, his name was Errol Cuff. He was my senior. And when I was learning how to fix TV, he had a daytime job at Lynn's Radio and TV on Orange Street.
Downtown Kingston.
Right beside Bunnelly's shop.
Yes, on Orange
And
Street.
when I was learning how to fix televisions, he showed me how to identify and troubleshoot the different areas of the television. And I said his name was Errol Cuff.
But even before that, you were born in this world of electronics, so to speak, because your father was a man who used to fix electrical appliances. What was his name, and just give a brief?
Well, Rudolph Brown, and he was also used to repair televisions back in Kingston.
And of course, this is in East Kingston.
East Kingston, yes.
Now, how did you get involved in the studio world?
Well, I was learning how to build amplifiers, and a friend of mine, Michael Clark, introduced me to King Tubby's Roots of Dub. And you'd build an amplifier and you would test it with rock and roll and different genres. Amplifier would be abnormal, but as you start playing something like from Tubby's that back in them time when they came out with the flying cymbal,
Yes.
the amplifier would be of somewhat abnormal. So I became fascinated with the sound effects and different way how Tubby's was mixing. So an ex-friend of mine later on by the name of Andrew Francis told me she was doing some grill work, those grills you see on
Grill
Tubby's.
work, yes.
Yeah, and
yes.
he knew Tubby's. So I think you should go around there and buy some of the parts that you need for your amplifier and let me carry around there when I go around there to do some welding.
Mm-hmm.
So I went down there, hang out with him while he doing his welding, and I find that Tubby's was a place where I could buy like transformers and parts and like copper wire to wind the transformers, So I start picking Tubby's brains about building a console and all that stuff there. And back them time there,
About what year was this? 1970 when?
1970 something, 75, 70 something like that. And back in them time there, I thought that I could do it, but then later on I find out it's not just a one-man job. It takes a team of people to build it. And I've been talking to Tubby's about making moving faders, and it was like way 30 years later at the time.
Futuristic.
Yeah, and Tubby's himself saying, look here, man, stop smoking that fucking marijuana. Stop talking marijuana. You're getting crazy.
But you were seeing things that later on became reality.
Yeah, I saw it, I live to see it now.
Moving faders, and I think there was something else that you spoke about also.
Well, moving faders, automation, we are to make, unlimited tracks. But, I was that 30 years ago when you did, a computer, and then we live to see it now manifest in what we're doing here tonight.
Come on, please. You were also involved, and most people don't know this, with the legendary Studio One at 13 Brentford Road, now called Studio One Boulevard, owned by Clement Seymour Dodd. And in terms of studio engineering, you have told me in the past that there was a gentleman who showed you a lot where it came on to studio work by the name of Bim.
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 Yes, we used to call him Bim, yes. He used to engineer at Studio One, and he showed me how we were on the studio, how, as you say, orientation, how to wear stuff, plug in, and I'm a self-taught person.
So he showed you the basics, and
showed
then
me the basic, and then I elaborate on the basic.
Was this before Tubby's?
Yes, and on and off sometime.
Tubby's said that he was not going to mix it, and Jammies was not there. So Jonjo was in a problem. So how did that work out?
Well, Tubby said, you always telling me you can mix, you can this, you can that. I bet if I send you around there, you don't know the first thing to do. Alright, so being as a young technician and, seeing it and seeing what him done and seeing what him do, okay, well, this have to do this and this have to do this. And that was the first song for me. The first song with Barrington, the first song with Jonjo. After that, I never fixed no more TV.
You remember the name of the song?
It was a Barrington Levy,
Caliweed.
Yes.
Right. And later on, you were the engineer for Marvelly.
Yeah, on my way to Marvelly. That was the first song.
That was the first one, yeah, which was Barrington's first hit too.
Yeah, that was his first.
It wasn't his first record.
You remember Leon that produced Barnabas Collins?
Yes, man, Leon Simon, that's Chester's bigger brother, my brethren's man.
Yeah, so Leon did give Jonjo a cut at the rhythm.
Right.
Because I remember that same rhythm come on Barnabas Collins.
Yes, definitely. And it's really a slower version of the Keith Slim Smith Conversation for Bonnie Lee.
From Bonnie Lee, right.
And that was Barrington's first hit.
Yes. And that was my introduction to this whole British thing that is going on here now.
And the rest of the world?
Well, as I say, it was the first.
Because I remember that Marvelly tune by Barrington Levy. All of the sound systems in Jamaica, they had to play it, because if you don't play it, you flop. At different times you have certain music that if you're not playing it, your dance flop. And at that time,
That was one of them. That's what I said. That's the first song I mixed, straight to number one. Yes. After that, I never fixed an XTV set.
And of course, I know Tubby's was pleasantly surprised at that.
Him lost on his bet. Because I never mixed a song before. I never recorded. I just been overdubbing, and they was expecting me, I don't know, to turn on the console and all of that. So I did it, and then after that now, Tubby's now, he find that him didn't have to come to the studio. Then, back at them time there, I was the kid, and nobody did me, what, you have the key to the studio? What? Nobody couldn't believe it. It was like a joy. You're like a kid, and people not seeing, they didn't believe me because they thought I was in a gang in Waterhouse, but I was never in any gang, and Tubby's was never ever in a gang leader.
And I can attest to what you have said, that it's true. Tubby's was not into any gangsterism, and neither were you. I mean, it was just musical excellence.
Yeah, and then people associate Tubby's with all this stuff. And then, but where's and Waterhouse, because I know, but was never in any gang. You know, I even get to know Tubby's mother.
Yes,
Yeah,
I remember.
Miss Sissy. But back in them time there, Tubby's would come to the studio, say 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and he stay for about 5 minutes or so, and then he gone. And then I used to just carry money to give him, and he never one day questioned me. How much why say how much studio time? He just take the money and he gone.
And anyone who knows Tubby's, and you know I know Tubby's from the 1960s, is a man when it comes down to his money and his business, he doesn't leave it to anyone. So for him to have left you in charge to collect money and not question, showed that he knew that he could trust you. He had.
Yeah, as a kid I used to love Tubby's. I used to love Tubby's. And you know, when I heard what happened to him, I was so shocked and surprised and wish they didn't do it to him.
True. Now, you did a lot of engineering work for not only John Joe, but Linval Thompson, Ja Thomas, name some of the others. So, I mean, you know, I mean, the credits.
It's more like who didn't I record?
Exactly.
Oh, I never record Slim Smith. Like I say, I never record Spear. I record Toots. I record Jimmy Cliff. I mix with Jimmy Cliff. Third World, Root Quality.
Roots with Quality. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Now, that was done at Channel 1. How
Yeah.
did you go and work at Channel 1?
Well, I wanted was to gain more experience. You know, because at Tubby's we couldn't really record music.
Yes, a 4-track, and it was you
4-track.
cut dubs
I
and
don't, yeah, I'm voicing. And I wanted more experience. And then I left and went to Channel 1 where I learned how to record. And the first song I
a band.
yeah,
like, yeah.
the first song I recorded down there was Lone Ranger M16.
Right, I remember that. M16, Lone Ranger. And what were some of the other songs that you did at Channel 1? 29 Maxi Labina. Again, so many.
It's so many, but you know, everybody coming through there. Bonnie Whaler, and even Bob Marley. Bob Marley teach him a lesson. You know, Bonnie Whaler came and he only had Bob Marley vocals and 2-track. But the 2-track was so holy that break. And if it wasn't for I personally, that album wouldn't exist because he went everywhere with that 2-track.
To try and fix it.
And
because it was so
no
old.
one could lift off the vocal because I was just afraid to touch it because you hold the tape at break. So I was to sit on for hours with some editing tape, that white tape,
Yes,
and
yes,
from a
edited.
back. And take time, run it on the back, and then everybody was like, no, you can't put a 2-track on a 16-track machine. And so watch, okay, bam.
And you did the so-called impossible.
Yeah, and get out the vocals, so could have the Bob Marley vocals.
And you also taught an engineer who became famous to Peter Chemist Thompson,
Yes,
who lived in the area at Channel 1.
Yeah,
yes.
Peter used to come over there and he used to help his mother clean up the studio. And one morning, you know, I was setting up for a session. I said, hey, plug in the mic. And was like, what? Plug in what? So I went around there, I'm showing basically the same thing Bim Bim showed me. And then from
Pass the
that,
lessons along.
yeah, and from that he started to pick up going along till I didn't want to, because he lived around there.
Yes.
When the night time work come, I just make him deal with it.
Oh, that was good. And you also worked at Tough Gang.
Yes.
Tell us about the Tough Gang experience.
Well, after I leave Channel 1, you used to go on Tough Gang because that's like the way home. So I used to go up there, and I don't know if you know Daily Alliance. She, I think Dennis Brown, she have a kid with Dennis Brown.
Yeah.
So one day Willie Linda was there, and him say, why you smile? Why you have that look on your face? And I said, Willie, dear, the console can do a lot of things, and here what you do. Book a session one day, and I show you. and they learned that you could do a whole bunch of other things on a console, you know. Bob Marley stuff and basically mixing monitor mode, and they didn't really know that they have a channel line position. And then after that, everybody started to come up there, like Yabby you and everybody who never.
Yabby, you used to be at Tubby's.
Yeah, all of them, Pablo, all of them followed me up there, and Channel One didn't really do anything.
Pablo Augustus Pablo.
Yeah. Roots Rallies, every band now start to record up there.
And then after before leaving Jamaica, you mixed a lot of albums where your name was credited as scientist, meaning you were the one because you had that magic touch in terms of dub mixing and so on, and the album sold on the strength of your name because this was a scientist mix. Did you get financial justice?
Well, what
you got the credit in terms of yes, scientists, and you can name some of the albums.
Yeah.
But getting praise.
Well,
what about the raise?
Yeah, well, yeah. So what had actually happened, and one of the reasons why I left from Tubby's, after like my cousin them started telling me, hey, you seen this album? What album? So I go to Tubby's and say, Tubby's, don't really want to mix a Junja them no more, you know. And these people can look at what them doing, and these albums coming out over here and nobody not telling you about it.
Can you name just some of the albums?
Yeah, like Will Win the World Cup. And mostly all that dub album is factually you can do. Don't listen to what I say, you can trace history. That's what put Greensleeve on the map.
In fact, they made some money because some game, what was it?
Well, not make some money, it cost them a lot of money. Grand Theft Auto game.
Yes.
So they put out the song on the game. They put out the song on the game, and then when I confronted Chris Cedric about the game, he talked to me like he talking to a illiterate idiot. Well, engineer, blah, 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 blah.
This is Chris Cedric, the owner of Greenseed, the Irish guy.
Yeah.
And his second was Chris Cracknell, the English guy.
Yeah.
So he was speaking to you as if you were some semi-literate.
Semi-literate, like a person like Junja who can read and write. So I said, look here, Chris. You're selling my name and you have to show me the papers. Well, blah, 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 bullshit. You're just an engineer. Why don't you get a lawyer? Okay, here comes a lawyer. And in court, he was forced now to give me the document because...
Subpoenaed.
When I just asked him a simple question. Where's the paperwork? How much money? But you see, they like having Jamaicans when you're hungry.
Yes.
They just tell you one thing and then you just shut up. Okay, master.
The slave mentality.
The slave mentality, but you get to find out that I wasn't that type of slave.
Because you're not a slave.
Yeah, I'm not a slave. And most people, are some people who's from that side don't understand when you're a black person, can talk to them like that and can talk to them with your intellect. Because look here, stupid people don't do electronics.
Yes, that's true. And you were willing to fight for your rights.
Yes, and then they got to Bonnie Lee, they got to Pat Kelly, they got to everybody. And there's only one person that could get to come alive for them, which was Jamis. And he came to court and tell, like as you know, and many other people know, he was on the board of 3 directors. He was in charge of the studio. When everything is actually operated, as you say, what kind of board? Probably is a piece of wood. He was never in charge of anything at Tubby's. More of Tubby's mother said she don't like him. And when Miss Sissy don't like you, Tubby's listen.
Yes.
Tubby's listen, but yet still he come and committed perjury and tell all these lies. When he was trying to set up his thing. So he wasn't there, as I say, he was very unreliable.
So you actually won that case?
Yes, we got a settlement from Grand Theft Auto, and then Grand Theft Auto um, turn around and sue them because they don't have what it constitutes for ownership, which is the legal document.
Because it put them into problem.
Yeah, producers don't own, and this is the misconception. He might own the
Tapes, yeah.
but the musical composition,
Compositions.
the producer does not own it. Doesn't care how much money he spend in the studio.
The composition is owned by the composer.
The composer, and you know what these are dubstrak. Well, it's a new sound recording.
Yes.
It's
So reworking, which is why your name or the name of someone else, like a heraldry or whatever, is used to give it credibility.
Yes.
Because it's a new work.
Yeah, and as me and you know, what those producers was doing back then, what coming to the studio and standing up, and other people do the work for them. So yes, that's what happened with that, and ever since that.
Well, I wouldn't even call people like that producers. I would call them executive producers. In that they spend the money, because a producer is one who actually directs and does things. But as you and I know, a lot of people who call themselves producers are really executive. They spend the money,
yeah, but
they know nothing
again,
about music.
But again, when you talk to Flavolt and them, well then they owe them money. They didn't pay them for the session.
So it's the now. What was your experience like moving to the USA? And what have you been doing since moving to the USA? And now you're here in London. It's not the first time you have been here. You have been here from many years ago. I remember when Lady English and I think
Judy Mowat
and the name of Sister Linda performed at the Town and Country, now called the Forum in Camden Town, and you were the engineer. And when I heard you, the way you mixed them, it sounded better than a record. And this was many years ago.
Well, yes, here's what the misconception is, and there is no disrespect. The musical composition, which is the musician and their talent, but the engineering is a total separate thing, and I'm not expecting musicians to know the technical details. But what I don't like with some of the folks from reggae, especially when I see somebody that look different from them, the musicians want to tell you what to do, what they want, and they don't really know. And this goes from A to Z.
Because they're not technically qualified. Because their thing is to play music. But when it comes on to the console, the studio work, that's a function of the engineer who knows.
Yes, and you find sometimes that some of them becomes uncooperative. They don't want to listen. Some of them have a big ego, and especially when some of them see a female. Oh God! And then if the female look different from the rest of us, oh God! It's like, you know. So I kind of get turned off from some of the musicians who come from Jamaica, because some of them have
some ego tripping.
The ego tripping thing, and oh God! So I don't. So when I come to America, thank God for America, I can now relax and be more selective in who I work with.
Now, what are your plans for the future?
Be more selective, straighten out some of the mess, like as me and you know, after King Tubby's died, all these albums come out saying Tubby's went really my album.
Tubby's who died in 1989. Yes.
Yeah. So what makes sense, why when he was alive, not one of these records came out? Like for example, Dangerous Dub. Tubby's never mixed one track on that album. The last song Tubby's mixed anybody was Barber Saloon with Mikey Dread.
Mikey Dread, Dread at the Control.
Dread at the Control. That was the last song he mixed anybody else. But you know, the part of the reggae thing is, I really wish it was a one love.
The unfortunate thing, or the reality, is that not just in reggae and not just in music, in every area of life, you have good and bad people.
Yes.
You'll never get away from that. And You just have to link up with people who are on the same wavelength as yourself, because you always have jealous and negative people. But scientists, we will be talking again. You know, we'll be having other reasonings and other interview, but it was nice for us to be speaking today, because I am in a position to be able to let the world be aware of where you're coming from and what you're about to do, and that you have not lost hope in terms of working in the reggae, in the music field. So, any last words for any new engineers coming up and for the music industry as a whole?
Yes, you have to know the law. You have to know your rights, because with even this new law that President Trump signed into law, the Digital Millennium Act, right, it opened up the doors to engineers and other people to be credited, and not just one set of people. And now they see the importance of remix. And dub was the first remix.
Yes.
And then
Others followed.
yeah, others followed. Dub is the first, is a mother for all electronic music. Period. None of them was before dub. Hip hop, none of them was before dub. And within this industry, there is still some professional prejudice, and dub and reggae don't get the true respect it they get, because without reggae, you wouldn't even have the type of sounds as some. Yes, what I need all the upcoming artists to know is your rights and know the law.
Because it's music business and not just music.
Yeah, the artists need to know that. Most artists, they take music as a hobby when it's actually a business, and they need.
It's a profession.
Yes, yes.
And of course, dub is a part of reggae, is a subgenre and so on. Well, my brethren, I look forward, and the world will be hearing more marvelous works
Thank you.
from my good brethren from the 1970s. Upton Brown, popularly known, professionally known as the scientist, or simply scientist.
Yes,
Well
sir.
done. It's
Thank
a
you.
pleasure.
Thank you, sir.